We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And there we are. Welcome to The Food Show for another Sunday afternoon. I'm glad you could join us. It's a great privilege to be here on a beautiful, beautiful day on the weekend. And we do this every weekend. It's on a Sunday from about 12 o'clock until about 1 o'clock. And an hour of food and farmers and restaurants and chefs and general food fun and mayhem we try to create here in the studio. Now, I have three special guests. One you'll know quite well if you're a 570 listener. And I want to introduce a man who comes on the radio every morning on the weekdays at 9 o'clock. He's controversial, he's thoughtful, he's provocative, and he's a wealth of cultural knowledge as well. Mr. Jeff Allen from the Jeff Allen Show.
And historian, too.
Yeah, and historian.
Historian.
Hey, 570 News, the Jeff Allen Show, weekdays at 9 a.m. Jeff, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. I'm hungry already.
It's so great to have you here.
Am I supposed to be thirsty too? I didn't know we had a blender going on
We've
today.
got some blending going on.
I guess that's a protein shake we're having, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're very, very healthy here.
Okay.
And the gentleman that's sitting just to Jeff's left is
Gentile man.
Mr. Pete Travers. Mr. Pete Travers is the program director. I got that right? And the guy who knows lots of food. He's a lot of food. Yeah, Pete, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. I don't think you've been on the show. First time?
I don't know that I have been on the show before, and I'm happy to be on the show right now. We're very excited to be here.
Well, you guys have a little bit of work to do later in the show because it was Jeff's choice to go to a particular restaurant in Kitchener. You joined us. We're going to go through the little tasting notes that we've set up. Jeff is a very sort of thoughtful, has a very thoughtful approach to food, and I'm really interested in hearing what he says.
He will only eat at a restaurant that has his name.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
because it was the
within
Allen
that subgroup.
Yeah.
Well, then he's very thoughtful. Right?
You know what? We're giving it away, but I did catch the restaurant sign by going, what? They didn't name a restaurant after me, but they left out an L.
Allen Chinese restaurant.
Sorry if I revealed something too early.
No. We'll talk about that a little later on. And the other gentleman who joins us is a mixologist, and a mixologist is someone who's an expert in the preparation and concoction, I guess, of cocktails. John Game from the Martini Club International. Welcome.
I thought a mixologist was a DJ. I didn't realize.
That's right. Yeah.
Actually, Jeff is also an historian and a mixologist, but not the same kind. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what I thought was interesting? You said earlier, before we got started on the show, you said, do you want me to build the drinks while you're talking? I said, build the drinks?
Yeah.
That's the new, the new phraseology. I like that. There you go. Build the drinks.
Well, John, you've gotten a little taste now of crazy radio mayhem here with Mr. Travers and Mr. Allen. There's no holds barred here when Jeff Allen is in the studio. And I'm sure Pete is pretty good at coming along as well.
Mr. Travers and Mr. Allen are our fathers. Pete and Jeff is just fine.
That's right. You got that right.
All right. Yeah. So now we have to get a little more serious because I'm going to introduce our next first guest on the show, and we're calling Vancouver right now. Mary Pullen is the program officer Bolivia of Crossroads International. That's CINTL.org. And Canadian volunteers are brewing up a business for domestic coffee roasters, and every cup of coffee tells a story. And Monday, March 19th, coffee with the most remarkable story will arrive in a shipping container at the Port of Vancouver. Unlike most beans traded on international markets, this coffee was financed and marketed with the help of Canadian volunteers. And to tell us a little bit more about this really interesting and tasty story, it's Mary Cullen. She's on the line. Hello, Mary.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
We're doing well. Thanks for joining us here. Now, explain a little bit of what Crossroads International is, first of all.
Yes. Crossroads International is an international cooperation agency, and we've been working on international development for over 50 years, and we work in 8 countries, one of them being Bolivia.
Okay. Now, coffee for most people is a sort of a take-it-for-granted kind of drink. We drive up to our favorite shops, maybe through the drive-thru. We grab our double-doubles or whatever we like, and off we go with our day. It's a sort of a high-octane caffeination that gets us through many, many situations and many times during the day. But there's a different way of buying coffee, and one that maybe some people aren't so familiar with. So explain to me a little bit about what's happened here with these roasters and the kind of relationship that your organization has developed, and it's going right across the country of Canada.
Yes. What we've done is that we've taken an innovative approach to how we work with our partners overseas. And in this case, we've developed a direct trade relationship. And what that means is that we've facilitated a partnership between a Bolivian cooperative that produces coffee and several Canadian micro-roasters. And what that ensures is that the coffee producers, the farmers, are going to receive a fair price. It's fair trade coffee. And they've had a chance, the micro-roasters have had a chance to actually visit Bolivia, visit the coffee producers, see the conditions in which they work in, and the coffee producers receive a higher price for the coffee that they've exported.
My understanding with Bolivia, besides being, I think, one of the highest capital cities in the world in terms of elevation, but also that it's a very, very poor country, one of the poorest in the world. Many, if not 90%, 80 certainly, live below the poverty line. And the unique thing about Bolivia is people just don't want to go there to develop business. It's not something that's on the international map when it comes to business development. Is this organization helping solve that problem?
We are. We actually, a lot of our partners in Bolivia are microfinance institutions. And the microfinance institutions assist, in particular, rural producers that run into two obstacles. They run into a lack of access to capital and lack of access to markets. So with the assistance of Crossroads International, we've been able to provide greater access to capital, greater access to markets, and this is just a clear example of that.
How much coffee are we talking about that will end up on Canadian shores on March 19th?
It's 250 bags, which are about 50 kilograms each, and it's one full container. So the containers you see on top of freighters, that's the amount of coffee that's going to be arriving in the Port of Vancouver tomorrow.
And it'll be distributed across the country. Any close by here to the Waterloo region in Toronto?
There's a few cities that it's definitely going to: Victoria, Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Halifax. Each of those micro-roasters may have relationships with some smaller coffee micro-roasters in the Toronto region, but we are hoping that in future years we'll be able to expand this so more coffee consumers throughout Canada can have access to Bolivian coffee.
Mary, can you just quickly sum up how we can take a look at some of the information that about your organization, what your website is?
Yes. To find out more information about the work of Crossroads and explore any volunteer opportunities or make a donation, you can go to www.cintl.org.
Thanks, Mary. I'm hoping that maybe some of that coffee eventually in the future will end up here in Waterloo region. Seems like a really good program, and I want to thank you for joining us today from Vancouver.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's Mary Cullen. She's the Program Officer, Bolivia of Crossroads International. Great organization. You can visit them at cintl.org. That's CINTL.org for more information. They're going to be doing great stuff with this coffee proceeds. I mean, 180 Bolivian families will use this income to pay for school, food, other basic necessities. We're helping in Canada, just through what we're doing, helping about 8,000 underprivileged children about 8,000 kilometers away. So I think it's great. Are you a coffee drinker, Jeff Allen?
Oh, yeah. And you know what? There's a lot of money to be made in that. So if a couple of cents per cup can go to that kind of cause, you know what? Hey, where do I buy it?
Are you a crazy coffee drinker? Like, do you grind your own beans, or are you sort of just the
You know what? My sister gave me this wonderful coffee machine for Christmas, and I'm good at it as long as I follow the instructions. I mean, I don't really go crazy. I'll get the different little samples and try them, but I can only have so much coffee because doctor's orders. I'm already too hyper all the time anyway,
I think
right? And
that's
decaf sucks, eh?
somewhat obvious, I think. I don't know about
Yeah.
Whoa. What are you talking about? What?
When we watch Jeff in action, it's
Allen?
it's a dynamo.
It's
a dynamo watching his radio show.
I have a cup of mud this morning. I'm not really in gear yet. So,
Pete,
I too am extremely high energy. Say that right up front.
Yeah.
I'm more what I would describe a pedestrian coffee drinker, in as much as there's a famous Dennis O'Leary bit where he just he pines for the day when there was coffee flavored coffee, and so I I probably frequent Hortons and Country Style and Coffee Time, and those would be my sort of go-to cups. And I would say to you that if I get into a Starbucks, I'll drink and enjoy Starbucks, but I find it too burnt and strong, and quite frankly, pretentious.
Okay.
I like when people do that for me. I just don't know how to do it, and
okay.
I'm like that even with home renovations, right? I don't want to look at a mistake I made for 20 years, so I pay someone who knows what they're doing to paint the wall.
Right.
And when someone's doing, but when people, like, this is what I do, right? But when it comes to coffee and stuff, I love the taste. It's just like when we go out for food,
Right.
You love it, but I'm not that pro that does it. So I love it when somebody else is good at it. They say, try this, try that, or like my man is going to build us a drink. I like a professional to do it, and that's what it's supposed to taste like.
I like that pretentiousness thing. I don't like that pretentious thing. I like that you pointed it out for Starbucks. When I go into Starbucks, I say, give me a medium coffee, and it just about sends them into a tizzy because if you don't use Venti, they go crazy. A medium coffee, what the heck is that?
Show me the cups. I'll point to the one I want.
It's ridiculous.
And plus, I'll say, give me the one that tastes the most like Tim Hortons, and they ate that too. You don't make anything like that, sir.
Try that in San Francisco. Tim who?
Yeah. And by the way, no disrespect to anyone who enjoys Starbucks, because I know a lot of people like that. I'm just saying, for me, that doesn't. If I have a choice anytime between a real strong, boutique coffee and a regular old good old coffee.
Well, it was explained to me that kind of coffee was designed for the American market, and they generally, especially the West Coast market, Starbucks,
yes,
and they want it more robust in flavor because they add so much to it, and
Yeah.
it takes away from the coffee taste. That's what they're using.
So let me ask you though,
stuff,
are you a
yeah.
black coffee drinker?
Yes.
You are.
Yes.
Good. Pete.
I'm 2 milks in my coffee.
Two milks,
so
okay.
it's
No sugar,
And
though.
I do drink and have had it black, like meaning for periods of time in my life I was a black coffee drinker. But I think just 2 milks, and I don't mind. Quite frankly, if it's a strong or it's a Starbucks, I'll go to the cream usually, or if it's an unknown coffee, I'll go.
You know what we should? There's a thing called caffè corretto, which it means corrected coffee in Italian, and what it really means is you take a shot of espresso and then you dump a little bit of grappa into it. And we've got a mixologist here. Maybe we can work something out where we can have some coffee.
We don't want to get under the grip of the grappa. Let me just say that right now.
Well, look, I'm speaking with Pete Travers, the program director, 570 News. Great guy, a food aficionado, and of course Mr. Jeff Allen. The Jeff Allen Show, 570 News, runs weekdays at 9 a.m. Great show. Tune in if you haven't seen this guy in action. Says a lot of really provocative things. Really gets your brain sort of swimming, stimulated, and ready to take on the day with some new ideas. And I'm really glad to have them here in the studio. We do have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Mr. John Game about some radio mixology.
Yeah.
This is 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Actually, you know what? That's T for 2, and I believe it was published and written and published on this day several years ago. Several years ago. I don't remember the exact date. I've lost that sheet, but I do know this is National Oatmeal Cookie Day. So I want to thank you.
Anybody have
return you. Thank you for coming back here to the Food Show. It's great to have you along. What we have going on now is a little bit of mixology. And Pete Travers is here, Jeff Allen is here, and we're gonna watch the magic of Jonathan Game. He's been in the mixology business for about 7 years. He's a mixologist for the Martini Club International, and your interest began while you were working in various bars in Toronto. Is that correct, John? And describe for me what mixology is. Is it a science? Is it a craft? Is it?
It's a combination. Some people
come nice and close to the mic. Yeah.
I think is that mic on?
I think so. Some people consider it a craft in the sense that it's an idea that you'd come up with and something that you can adapt to yourself.
There we go. Yeah.
At the same juncture, you guys can hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Sure,
Everybody.
yeah.
Okay. And essentially the idea is that there's a technical side to it, and it does actually border on a science in the sense that you have to learn how to essentially balance things out. And there's things you can go into the realm of what's called molecular mixology, where you're using different elements, different atoms even, just to ensure that you've got something that's a little bit more technically based. So, for example, you can take a grape and fill it with CO2, so it actually bubbles in your mouth when you put it into a drink. So there's quite a large spectrum. Mixology is something that is essentially has grown out from the spirit world in the sense that we wanted to be able to adapt drinks to other people's interests and also allow people to be creative when they're designing their own drinks.
And the Martini Club is an international group. Are they responsible for creating martinis?
Essentially, that's what we do. We're a boutique group.
Drinks, I guess.
Yeah. So we're a boutique group that works with various organizations and companies around the world. And what we do is we'll design menus for certain restaurants or businesses, or we'll work directly with a company and come up with a new concept so they can either market their drink or come up with something new that quite delicious.
Okay, so what have you got on the go for us here?
Well,
We're it's getting hot in the studio here,
It is
so we need
getting
a little
hot. Also,
beverage.
a lovely weekend. It's been a hot weekend, so I think it's time to celebrate a little bit. So first off, we've got what's called the Coastal Surf Margarita.
Stay close to that mic.
So essentially what we're doing here is we're replicating what would be a cocktail drink. So a margarita, typically you're going to use alcohol and a lot of sugar, but what we're using instead is we're using beer. So fortunately Corona and with us, with the Martini Club, we've come up with a drink that tastes very similar to a margarita, but instead we're using simply beer. So the idea is that we have a blender and we fill it up with 1 cup of ice. We add an ounce of tequila. And essentially with this one, the tequila is added to this one just because we want that undertone of the spirit. But the idea is that the beer is going to be a bit more pronounced.
All right.
And then we have an ounce of lime and 1 ounce of orange syrup. So essentially it's going to give it that sweetness and that bite. And then what we like to do is we like to add a little bit of chopped chili so that you get a bit of heat on it as well. So the idea is we've mixed it all into the blender here.
Right.
And we let it sit for 1 moment. And
there we go.
That's a real sound
Gee, I
effect,
think
too.
I got my hair, I think, a little bit in there.
well, that's the heat.
Actually, can we try an experiment? This hasn't been done before. Can you ask Jeff a question and then you hit the blender when he answers?
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think your favorite cocktail?
Sorry.
All right.
So
Wasn't
yeah,
that impressive, was it? Sorry.
Thanks, Pete. This is the program manager in Travers.
Well,
Always
we have
trying
to
come
do
up-
whatever
what's
he
it was-
says.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Felt
see.
Yeah, it's our boss, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah,
We have
see,
to be
he knows I'm mental. He won't let me on the show, any other show but my own, without him watching me, see?
I'm gonna hit the blender again.
Sorry, yeah.
You know the
Drown him out right now, please.
Okay, sorry, John. Where are
He's
we
got a
in the
rope around
margarita
my
mix
waist,
here?
too.
Where are we in
So
the mix?
essentially
Where-
what we do is that we add it to what would be your classic margarita glass. Most people
Close
see
to
them
the mic.
Most of the people have seen them when they're going overseas or
Good,
they're down
okay.
in Mexico. So the idea is we top it with a little bit of Corona as well, so it would be about 3 ounces. So what you're going to get is you're going to get the tequila, but we're also going to bring out the Corona flavor. So essentially it's a low-calorie version of a margarita because you don't have the intensity with the sugar and you don't have the intensity with the spirit.
Is this an old drink, the margarita?
The margarita is an older drink, but the idea is that it's a new flair that we're adapting with beer. Because
And
the
this
idea-
is your creation.
This
then,
is our
Chad.
creation.
Okay.
So the idea is that we're trying to put a new spin on what we can use with beer because people typically think you can only mix drinks with spirits, but you can actually do a lot with beer as well.
Okay, and I'm speaking with John Game. He is from the Martini Club International, also inside the studio here with us. Glad to have him. Pete Travers from 570 News Program Director, and Jeff Allen, the Jeff Allen Show, weekdays starting at 9 o'clock. So what are we going to finish up with? How do we finish up this little beverage now?
Well, what we would do is ideally you just want to give it a nice garnish. So that's the presentation because the idea is you want to have fun with it. So you can bring your friends around. You can say, okay, we got all the ingredients that we need, is what I listed, and we build it. And the idea is you want a bit of flair. So what we take is what's called a lime wheel. Essentially, it's just a lime chopped. And we put it on the rim, so you've got a lovely drink, and it's attractive for most people, and it's a bit refreshing if you want to squeeze it in near the end.
Are you constantly searching for new ideas? Like, how do you get new ideas? New ideas are hard to come up with. I can't come up with new ideas. For drinks now, do you sort of scan the horizon and see who's doing what kind of tweaks you can bring over from other food areas?
There are influences, and the idea is there's overlap between the restaurant industry and what we're doing in mixology. And ideally, for example, with these beer cocktails, is that we realize there's a lot of potential to work with different beers. So ideally, this first came out of England, and we thought, well, why don't we try it here in Canada? Unfortunately, Corona and Molson's as well, they've been very progressive in the idea that we can actually do a lot with this. And so ideally, we find our inspiration through trying to find different food pairings, or just to try and reinvent drinks, or adapt them with new ingredients.
So what are the flavor profiles? What's the kind of note? What are we going to get out of this drink? Like, is it
out of the margarita, you're going to get something that's very similar to what I would describe, as your classic margarita. But the idea is that we've got a lot more heat because when we're adding the chopped chili, it's got that bite. But the idea that since we've got the lime and we've got the orange, it's going to cut it a bit. So it's actually quite balanced. And then the idea is that typically the alcohol would always override with your classic margarita, but with this, the beer makes it a bit softer and a bit smoother.
Oh, that sounds like it's a nice drink, and a nice summer drink, as we've got summer now.
And
in the
summer's
middle
here
of March.
early, so you may as well have one.
Are we going to
Are
have
we
one?
going to
I
have
think
one?
we are.
Yeah.
Listen,
Send it over there to those guys. Send it over to
yeah.
Mr. Travers over there. Because while you're doing that, I want to ask you about this trend in food and drink where we've got drinks that have food in them. So I know that there's a cocktail that has a smoked pork hock in it. There's all this kind of. Is this the newest trend
Bacon-infused
here?
vodka. It's a trend, but it's the idea that now because we've got the base in terms of being mixologists, we learn how to work with molecules as we mentioned, so we can actually taper the flavor a bit more, so it's not overwhelming one way or the other, and there's a lot of room for fusion. It really depends on the venue or the client, but people sometimes are interested in exploring what they can do in comparing food and combining food.
Let's get some tasting notes here from
I'm telling
Jeff.
you, I like that. First of all, I likes me a margarita. I would like to disclose that. And
Did you say I likes me a margarita?
I heard that.
Yeah, I'm just,
I am what I am, and I'm margarita the man.
After one sip, okay.
No, that's I don't know that I'm an aficionado of the margarita, but I like one, and that's that's got the margarita taste. I like the little bit of burn from the
Margarita,
pepper.
yeah.
Bit of the
Do you
heat.
notice the beer
Beautiful.
in there?
No, it doesn't. I
You
don't.
don't.
I don't think I'm drinking beer. I think I'm drinking a margarita.
Do you know I've never had a margarita? I don't drink cocktails.
Oh, really?
Sorry?
I don't drink cocktails. I've never had a margarita. Is there traditionally
You owe it to
a
yourself,
carbonation in there or not?
Not typically. The
Okay,
idea
so
is
this
that
would add a
you
little bit of
you get a lot
carbonation
more
stuff.
bite, and the idea is that's why we're saying with the Corona we're able to actually smooth it out a lot more.
And
Are you
it's a
gonna
lower
break
alcohol.
my,
I think you should maybe give it a sip. And
Oh, I'll
see
give
what
it
You
a
know what? The first thing I noticed is the presentation is excellent, Mr. Mixologist.
Thank you very much.
Mixologist, and I'm telling you, you can tell by the texture of that drink that it's a perfect mix of the ice and the effervescence, if you will, of the beer, the bubbling
Right.
sensations there. It makes it the texture is completely different. And it's I noticed what you're saying. There's more of a beer taste than an alcohol taste. I mean, the spirits has a different taste than beer does.
And it's a lighter combination, so
Yeah.
there's actually
It
lower
is.
calories.
I do like it. I can see where it's very refreshing, and I
Yeah.
agree with Mr. Travers over there about that little heat kick that you
Yeah.
get
Right.
that late in the finish.
Very
yeah.
nice.
And the idea is just to kind of taper both, but
It's the crushed ice that makes a difference too. You wouldn't want to serve that without that crushed
No,
ice. That
no,
gives it that
It
texture.
essentially wouldn't even be similar to a margarita.
Right.
With this, we're getting the exact flavor. It's just
Okay.
a modification of the
Yeah.
ingredients.
Anything that you would recommend, sort of, in terms of another modification to this? Is there another kind of
With regards to the
flavoring
drink,
that can
I
go
wouldn't necessarily say that's something that you could make a modification at home if you've got a preference. If you'd like to add a little bit more lime, that's fine. But the idea is that you also want to look for maybe food pairings that you could connect to it. So, for example, if you were to have some grilled shrimp and some mango, so then you've got a bit more of the grill flavor, and you've got the lime that's going to cut it, and you've got the mango as well. If you do know that it's essentially a citrus fruit and a combination with either papaya or mango, it's quite flavorful. So we can look for food to adapt to it.
Can you do that flare stuff? Do you flick the bottle?
I'm
around
not
with
bad. My
is
motor
that-
skills are all right, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't say
what,
that.
What are they called? Motor skills?
I would say
skills.
motor skills. Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice to
Does
be
it-
It
good
takes a
at
lot of
that.
practice, and there's also the room to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful.
Is it still going on? Or
It's
is it-
popular in
is it-
some venues. We're much so like we have our routine in terms of the way that we bartend in the Martini Club, and it's quite well defined. So it's interesting the way that we do it, but we avoid the flair just because it's a lot of adaptation, and some clients want it and some don't. So we just kind of
So you've got international experience both in
Yes.
your personal life and in your work through the Martini Club. Where does Ontario? Where do we in Canada, in Ontario specifically, stand in the mixology
we're
beverage world? Are we advanced? Are we?
We're actually quite progressive, and essentially with some of the clients that we, for example, like working with Corona and working with Molson's and Miller, we've actually been able to be quite progressive in the way that we're designing new drinks, and there's a lot of people that aren't really on the cusp of exploring these options. So
Okay.
it's great to be working with people that are open to this.
Well, John, I want to thank you. You're going to stick around? Can
I'm
you
gonna
stick around?
stick around, yeah,
Because
I'll make
we've
some
got
more
some
drinks.
other
Yeah.
business to do, and in that time, though, I think maybe it'd be fun to have you alongside, just sort of keep sort of priming the pump. here.
And I'll plug another drink.
Because
for you as well.
when you talk on the radio, your throat sometimes gets a bit dry. Jeff? You need a little bit of help.
That's
sometimes.
why you need common water, you
Okay,
know.
sometimes the margarita's not bad either.
Yes,
Well, thank you, John Game of the Martini Club International. For more information, visit martiniclub.com. Thanks for joining us. Now, stay tuned. We have to take a short break. We'll be back, and we'll hear about Jeff Allen and, of course, Pete Travers, and what their thoughts are on their visit to Allen Chinese Restaurant. There's no relation there, is there, Jeff?
No.
Okay, so when we come back, we'll get the goods on what's your favorite dishes. I think people will be interested in knowing what one of your favorites are.
Okay.
This is The Food Show, and you're listening to 570 News.
We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Welcome back once again. Things are out of control here in the studio at 570 News Food Show. Yeah, Pete Travers, Program Director of 570 News, and of course Mr. Jeff Allen.
Hello.
A great privilege to have him in the studio. Here's a great guy to listen to weekday mornings at 9. The topics are sometimes local, the topics are sometimes national, the topics are sometimes international, they're anthropological, they're political, they're
Yep.
environmental. You cover the range, don't you, Mr.
Yes, and tomorrow I have an appetite for talking about rapid transit and, well, riots at colleges in our towns.
Okay. That'll get a few.
Anarchy.
I'm sure that'll get a few. Yeah, anarchy. That's what it's called. Yeah, anarchy. And we also have John Game here. He's you're working on another little. As we sort of go through this segment, you're going to be putting together another drink for us because we need this little bit of fuel to sort of sustain us here.
And it's a nice day,
It's a
so
nice
we
day.
may as well
So you're going to be making
I'm making what's called the Miller Chill Mojito. So essentially, it is a mojito, but instead of using alcohol or rum, we are using beer.
So it's a kind of, again, this is this fusion between two different kinds of
It's a
alcohol.
fusion idea, but we're adapting it with beer, and it tastes similar to the original drink. So ideally what we do is we take a highball glass and we put lemon, just a little bit, not too much. Then we add lime, mint, and we muddle. And we muddle quite well. Muddling is essentially what you use.
Well, muddling is what I do every hour here at Sunday.
That's right. I
Is
do.
that a Harry Potter thing? Muddle?
I thought that was a blackjack. Yeah, I thought we were in some sort of danger here.
Yeah, really.
That's some sort of baton.
So muddle away.
Muddle away. So that's essentially what I'm doing here. And what we do is, muddling essentially is when we combine all the different flavors by pressing them together. So it's like a pestle and mortar in a glass. And we add simple syrup, and we top with what's called Miller Chill, which is absolutely delicious. And essentially, it's got a bit of a lime flavor, so that compensates for it. And we top it up, and I have to make sure that there's ice always to the brim. Mild. Oh, that's fine. That typically happens.
We had a little bit of an overflow there.
Just a mild one. And then what we do is we garnish once again, because we do like presentation, so we add the lime and a bit of mint. And a little trick is to always slap the mint just before you put it on top.
Slap your mint.
Yes, because it actually releases some of the oil, so you get some of the flavor when you're.
You bruise it, yeah. Bruising it is
No,
not
not
good.
bruising
Slapping
it.
is
Just a little slap. Just a tap.
All right, John, you go to. We're going to sample some of the Miller Chill Mojito from the Martini Club mixologist John Game, and as that's happening, we're going to be talking now to Jeff Allen and Pete Travers. Now, Jeff, this was a pick. This restaurant was something. How did you come across a restaurant named Allen Restaurant?
Well, I live in the Belmont Village area, so this is very close for me. My border for Babe, my dog, and I when we walk is between Westmount and Strange, really, and bordered by Glasgow, or really Union down to Gage. And so we're walking along one day along Westmount, just near Gage actually, and the overpass is there, and I look over and I see this plaza. Hey, somebody named a restaurant after me. I'm going to have to sue them. They didn't ask me. And then I went, they were smart. They left one L out.
That's right.
They left one L out, not to break the trademark. So I went in there and looked at the menu, and I went, okay, I love Chinese food. Let me try this for takeout. So I did, or delivery, right? I called and went and picked it up.
Right, okay.
Well, I was stunned, right? I went, holy mackerel. This is really, really good and good value. And I continued to call them and do that. So I said, well, let's go and do a surprise look and eat in. Because I don't know about you guys, but Chinese food tastes the best when it comes out on a plate.
Yes.
It loses something. I think the best takeout things were those old paper ones we used
Cardboard.
Cardboard ones. But, you
Shirtboard
really
box.
lose their taste. It's like anything. If it's put in styrofoam and stuff, you get it. Well, theirs tasted good, but I said, I want to try it in the restaurant. So we went. And we enjoyed, and you guys came with me, and you know what? It's a nice restaurant. The food is good.
Pete, your thoughts? To start with, just the general impression that you got on Pawn, sort of seeing the restaurant storefront and then getting inside the restaurant.
I would say, if it's possible to say so, typical in many ways so in other words, it's your what I would call your typical Chinese food restaurant. And we talked about before we were going in, or as we were going in, the difference between the North American Chinese food restaurant, which has got the egg roll, chicken balls, sort of the usual stuff. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the authentic Chinese food restaurant. It's certainly in town here, a lot of them up by the universities, where you don't find chicken balls on the menu. Just to use that as our if that's our dividing line.
Okay.
It's much more, the noodle dishes and that kind of thing, and more steamed items and whatever. This restaurant seemed to straddle that a little bit, but certainly I would say average, normal, everyday.
And as we found out, by the way, there are two. As Andrew found out at the end, there are two menus.
We'll
we
get
need
to talk about that, because that is
Yes.
an interesting thing, and I think there's a lot of myth about it, and maybe we can sort of deconstruct some of that or debunk it or what.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the decor in that, it's like Pete, I think it's like Pete said, it alluded to. It's a pretty straightforward. It used to be another kind of restaurant, right, Jeff?
I wrote down nothing to write home about. Plain and simple food. It's clean, small, simple. There's no wild decor or anything. It's just a cafeteria, really.
Really?
Really. But that's you go for the food. You don't go to look at paintings. You don't look at the wallpaper. It's the food's good.
I would ask them to upgrade the glass, the cups we had water in.
Water
glass.
Plastic.
From plastic to glass. I would ask for that.
Yeah, that's good. What about the food, though? What was the thing that jumped out on your? You wanted a soup right away. You waned a soup right away.
I love hot and sour soup, and I loved it. And it's funny because for the first time. I realized they're garnishing that hot and sour with fresh cut green onion, which I think they are everywhere. But when you get it fresh to the table, that onion is still...
The aroma comes up.
And Andrew, because he knows, he pointed out afterwards how the soup changes with the temperature.
Yeah.
As it cools,
it
loses some viscosity.
It loses a little bit of
becomes
body.
less viscous.
But I agree with you, and it had a nice heat. It wasn't too hot. It was like our friendly margarita here that had just that little bit of heat kick. It wasn't overpowering.
It was generous portion too. Very huge
looked
portion.
to me like it would be almost a family size. You could share two.
Yeah, I would say for sure.
And you had a wonton soup, Jeff.
Yes, I did. I had wonton soup, and it was also good value. That's the other thing too, folks. It's good value. You get a lot of food for your money. Like a lot of times you don't get those portions, but you get big plates, and when your takeout packages are big. So the orders are big. You will fill up. It's not your average small normal wonton soup. That's the double normal size, I think.
Yes.
It was hot, it was fresh, and the wontons weren't wilted.
Right, and we should point out that they didn't know who we were. It wasn't like we were getting any special treatment or anything like that. Pete, something else also jumped out at on the menu that you wanted to order.
Okay, well, so my favorite thing to order is the General.
Yeah.
General, and we were debating how you say. I say General Chow, but General Cho, but it's TSO on the menu. General. And I've had that at many, many different places. And in some ways, if you argue that spring rolls might be the same most places or egg rolls might be similar, the same, I've had good and I've had bad and I've had exceptional. This was perhaps the best General I'd ever had in my short life.
And for me, I really enjoy, and especially for me, the last little while because of my mouth issues. For those of you who don't know, I had some implants put in, and I'm still healing, and I can't eat in the front, and I've got to eat anything without a knife. Right?
Okay.
Egg foo young is a Chinese omelet. Okay.
Right, yes.
So if you don't know what it is, it's basically if you like a good Western omelet or something, you're going to love this. And usually it's made with vegetables or mushroom, or sometimes you can get chicken or whatever you want in it. It's just an omelet, but it's beautiful when it's done right. And
this is the dish that really captured your
your
taste buds,
because I'll
didn't
tell
it?
you why. Because most people will, especially when you send it out takeout, they put the sauce. There's a sauce that comes with egg foo young, which adds the final touch to it, just like our mixologist puts just that, he said slap the mint, right? When you do that before you make a drink. You put that sauce on when you're going to eat it. Right, don't put it on before you send it out because it makes the egg all wilty by the time it gets there.
This is an important step, isn't it, Jeff?
Oh, yeah, for me. And because they know what they're doing, because that's authentic. It's served that way. You ruin it if the sauce is on there too long. And so by the time it's in the car and gets to your house, even if you're driving yourself, it never tastes the same. And is it good?
Now, while you pass me that drink.
Yeah, you want... No.
I want to try some. I'll try some.
Yeah.
Don't
forget to slap
I think we need to be honest and talk to our listeners about everything that happened during this visit.
Yeah.
We need to disclose that there was a little slight problem when they forgot the egg foo young, which was kind of ironic because that was the thing you were really coming for. And you pretty much nailed it on what happened. So do you want to describe
Well, it was this. I went,
It's a minor thing.
They forgot my order. I said, of all things, they forgot my order. I knew it. Now, I'm going to tell you this. We had a language problem, and that was, it's not a criticism.
It's a fact.
It's a fact that she just didn't understand what we said. Okay, and so they got a bit of the order messed up, but the food came out. It was great. And I went, you know what? They forgot my order. I just knew it. And then I said, you know what I'm worried about is they're going to rush this, put it on the plate. It's not going to be as good as it should. It was a bit runny.
Yeah, it wasn't cooked far enough.
It wasn't cooked far enough.
Because they wanted to hustle
it
to the plate, obviously.
Yeah,
right.
I knew that. But I've had it so many times, I write that one off as they were in a hurry.
Exactly.
But usually the food is, overall, it's got a great taste. It's not too over the authentic line. Some people don't like that. Once they get that smell of seafood in it or that sort of authenticity taste, there's a big city Chinese food smell. Some people get turned off by that. Yeah. I think this restaurant has the best of both worlds that way.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that too. That although there was a problem with this egg foo young, as you should do with any restaurant reviewing that you're doing, it's got to be something that's evaluated over a course of number of meals. You don't want to, because you've had 8 dishes there that have been great, and there's one that's just a little.
And I've eaten across the world, really. I've lived in San Francisco and in Toronto, where there's 2 major Chinatowns, and you kind of know. And I'll tell you what, the jewel of the Nile, if you will, for Chinese food is in the West. You wouldn't believe you get the best Chinese food in the country in Regina, Saskatchewan.
It is a great story.
Because the Chinese built the railroads in this country, and when they came east, they kind of went to towns where they were allowed to stay where people didn't want to chase them away. So they went to places like Pile of Bones, Saskatchewan, which became Regina, places like Moose Jaw, Swift Current, known as Speedy Creek. All these places along the prairie have the Chinese food.
They started off as chop suey houses.
Yes,
that's what they called them.
Yes, you go, wow, right next to the opium den, but that's another story. I mean, well, no, they had had them all in one district. No, they did. They had them all in one district.
Yes.
Really?
That's beyond my experience, Jeff.
No, yeah, they even have caves in Moose Jaw where they hide that stuff.
Pete, Pete, you enjoyed the Shanghai noodles as well. Those
I
are
loved
a
them.
thick
And
wheat noodle.
let me just say, in fact, I would say, because we had Shanghai noodles, we had, Shanghai noodles,
Veg fried
General,
rice.
veggie fried
General,
rice.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the food was exceptional. I think that we all thought maybe the rice could have been a little more fried. It was steamed. It felt like it was almost
too
steamed.
I didn't get the fry kind of quality out of it.
But the food was exceptional, and I made the mental note, and my wife will tell you I badgered her about this. Yeah. We got to go to Allen Chinese Food. I'm telling you, the food was exceptional.
Yeah.
I loved the food.
And for you university guys and single folks, and never mind that, right now we're all watching our money, and families want to get out and get a dinner for $4 or whatever. I'm telling you, you're going to get good value. You're going to have leftovers. You get a lot of food for the money. That's important. It's really good quality, but quantity, big time.
I think one of the things that struck me as pretty good was that it wasn't a really greasy, oily meal either.
Right.
I think they used that in reserve. And
and you also mentioned that you thought that the spring rolls and the egg rolls were fresh.
Yes, they weren't
very
sort
fresh.
of pre-cooked and then finished. They looked like they just came out of the deep fryer.
They felt very
and
fresh.
They weren't really oily. And I think that, like you say, the value was great too. I think the total tab for the three of us to have about 8 dishes from spring rolls to soup and then on to main courses was under $50. I think that was like $43 or something, which is very, very good value, big pot of tea. So really good. Now, Pete, you wanted to...
Well, here's the deal. I don't know how many people in the audience know this trick, and I'm revealing it now to everybody. First of all, I was the one of the three of us who ate my fortune cookie at the table, and I got the business over it because everyone else was going to save theirs. And then I said, hey, did everyone bring their fortunes? And did everyone bring their homework?
No, I know what mine
I brought
said,
my homework.
though.
Okay, all right. So here's the deal.
I have my homework.
Okay. Telling you right now, this is the trick. You read your fortune. This is a trick in our household that we love to do.
Okay.
You read your fortune and you add the word in bed at the end of it. Okay. So Andrew, read it without preparation. Read it off the paper and then say in bed. Go ahead.
Well, are you sure?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You will be rewarded for your honesty in bed.
Am I wrong? Okay. Jeff, what did yours say?
You will not get your egg foo young in bed.
Mine says, I will be recognized for my strong generosity in bed. And that's
Strong?
okay. So listen, I beseech.
I'm glad it's the program director here.
I'm just saying to the audience, always add the word in bed to your Chinese fortune, and it ups the entertainment level.
Allen Chinese food in bed.
All right.
There you go. And you can find it on
And on the
Westmount.
other side, it says learn Chinese.
Learn
The
Chinese.
word for vegetable is
Duck in bed.
shukai.
Yeah.
Shukai in bed.
Okay.
There we go. Well, I want to thank Jeff. You're not going away. I want you to
No.
stay with us, but we got to get out of this segment. I want to thank Jeff for his, first of all, turning me on to this restaurant, because it is one that, for me, when I'm in that neighborhood, I will certainly drop
And
by.
anybody can go. Tell them I sent you, but I don't know if it'll matter. But
Just
you know,
the different spelling of the name, right?
Sure, yeah.
Pete Travers, thanks. And we also want to say thank you, John. That was a great little sip of Miller Chill Mojito from the Martini Club that was able to sip along as we enjoyed our tasting notes here. And I have to point out that assessing food, atmosphere, service, and prices, dining out restaurant reviews, and tasting notes here on the Food Show are based on anonymous and unannounced visits to the establishments.
Yeah.
The restaurants do not pay for any portion of the reviewers' meals. Thanks very much.
all right. Now, before we go, I have to ask John. If you slap the mint, does that mean you spank the lamb before you eat it?
I think that's up to you.
In bed.
In bed.
Just to tell you a little bit about future guests on the Food Show, the region's fire chiefs will be joining us next week to give some insight into fire hall cookery, so please tune in for that. But don't go away. There's more in the Food Show right after these messages. You're listening to 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. Now back to the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Oh, boy.
Here we
Pretty
are.
cool music,
You like that guy?
Andrew.
Who is that guy? I forget that guy's name.
I forget.
Pete, you know?
So, how about cooking something up with me? What you got cooking? Hey, good looking. I can't remember.
Well,
Johnny
I
Cash,
should tell you
maybe.
this.
Oh,
No,
somebody
it's
say
not that.
sacrilege. How could you
Sacrilege.
say that, Jeff? The man in black would never sing that song.
Well, if you couldn't tell, we're here with the Food Show and Jeff Allen. He's the host of the Jeff Allen Show, running at weekdays starting at 9 o'clock.
9 to noon. You got me all wound up now. I'm just going to stay here right all week. It's a 24-hour marathon.
The little extra mojito doesn't hurt either, does it?
Sure. They got me all wound up. The whole little sip there. That's messed me right up.
Pete Travers as well. Pete Travers is a good friend of the show, and he's also a well-spoken musician, as well as a guy who really likes his food. He's the program director here.
To use the food analogy, I'm a ham and eggs
ham and eggs, yeah. Now, we also I had a couple of tweets. People were asking about recipes and picking up from the Martini Club and John Game if they could find out how to make these drinks. Do you want to give them a little bit of information, John?
Come a little closer. At Martini Club International. And as well, we've got two Facebook
pages. Slow.
Martini Club
International.
Okay.
Yes. And we've also got, and you can also just plug that into Google, and it will be the first
Martini Club International, you martini lovers.
And as well, you can also get the recipes on the Facebook page. So we've got the Corona Canada page. So if you go to Facebook, Corona Canada, as well as Miller Chill Canada. So we'll have all the recipes available for you.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us. They're great drinks. I think Pete has a new respect for this sort of blend of drink, because I don't have a real background in cocktails, so I couldn't tell you sort of from a basic knowledge. But you're
when you see hits to the website, I'll be one of those hits getting the recipe for that margarita that I just had.
We have to hurry and get to Pete's. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today story.
Okay, Wimpy. Again, the cultural references. Okay. So, Pete, now this was interesting because we're all experiencing a sort of a barbecue fervor here, and it's not even we're just in the middle of March. Well, you got your barbecue operating.
We were barbecuing last night. My brother came over for supper, and we had what we call in our house Uncle Jim burgers, because in the summer family reunion party in the summer for the Hughes family, that's my mother's family. My uncle does the burgers up like this. He takes the bowl and mixes up the ground beef and all the different stuff you'd have in your burger, but then puts it into a cookie sheet and takes
this is what I find really interesting. Yeah, rolls
it into a cookie sheet. Okay, now for all of us, when we were kids, and Mom, can't you make it flat like McDonald's? Well, you roll it in the cookie sheet, and you get the roller makes it nice and compact, and then you cut them into squares or rectangles, whatever the shape is that you prefer. Then take a spatula, lift them out of the cookie sheet onto the grill, and these things cook. And my brother said last night, it's almost like a steak when it comes off, because there's
nice.
And I'll tell you something.
So you can make
it's kind of like having a Wendy's burger a little bit, but you can make them as thick as you like. And
it seems like a very efficient way, rather than making a whole bunch of individual patties, all of different shape, irregular.
Yeah. You could get your cookie cutters out from Christmas and make some.
You can make snowflake
and
Christmas tree shaped burgers.
Snowflake burgers.
You know what? I think that's thanks for Jeff for taking this into new territory. But anyway, I'm just saying it was Andrew, it was really good. It's a great, and it's our favorite way to do burgers. By the way, Pete at 570news.com if you want to know more.
If you want to complain about the crazy guy they had on the
Pete
food show.
Pete at 570news.com. And Jeff, as you struggle with your headphones there, it's like he's the first time he's ever had them on or something. What's on the show tomorrow, Jeff Allen? Jeff Allen Show. What's on the show tomorrow?
We're going to talk about the LRT. Is it coming? Is it going? And I think I'll allow a half an hour for you to react to this.
The thing is going to cost $1 billion, right?
Yeah, well, that's the starting price. That's if we get the money. But we'll also let you talk about what's happened in London this weekend. I guess the largest civil disobedience they've ever had in that city. And are students going back in time, or are we going ahead in time on that one?
Well, thanks a lot. It's been great to have you guys on the show. John Game.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, too. It's been a real pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for this week. Thanks to Mary Pullen of Crossroads International, John Game of the Martini Club, 570 News Program Director Pete Travers, and the host of the 570 News, Jeff Allen Show, Jeff Allen. Make sure you tune in Wednesdays at 9. What's coming up, Jeff? Well, you've already told us there's some great things coming, and I hope everyone will come and listen if you haven't listened before. Thanks also to our studio operator here at 570 News, Internet producers Jordan Carbone and Catherine Drake. 570news.com has an archive of past shows, and you can follow the Food Show at twitter.com 570 Food Show, and visit my website as well as read my Kitchener Post column every Friday afternoon. Join us again next week. Region's Fire Chiefs will be here to talk about fire hall food. Remember, eat wisely and eat well. And thank you for joining us here at the Food Show, only on 570 News.